Welcome to the Transform Sales Podcast, where forward-thinking business leaders come to share their experiences and ideas, learn from each other, and amplify their results together.
Hey guys, Amir Reiter here with the Transform Sales Podcast. I got my guest, Michele Plunkett. I pronounced that correctly?
Absolutely.
I did.
Yeah.
Hi, Michele. How are you? Michele is from VSA Prospecting, and I think you're based in New Jersey, correct?
Absolutely. Yep. Just over the bridge from Philadelphia.
Awesome. So VSA Prospecting, one of the top 20 agencies in our marketplace. Got the opportunity to work with Michele. Michele's been just awesome to work with and talk to. Michele, it'd be great to know a little bit about your background. How did you get into running revenue and operations for a top B2B sales agency? What has that path been looking like?
It's been an incredible path, and it was completely unexpected. So forever ago, truth be told, I was fortunate to be a stay-at-home mom for some time and was looking to re-enter to the workforce, learn something new, and have a flexible schedule. So I landed at VSA when we were very, very young, very young. So it's been over 11 years that I've been with the company. We started where there was 8 people in the office, and now we've got a workforce that's closing in on about 300 people in 3 lines of business. So as I stayed with the company, grew my titles, went all through, operational excellence, and now a senior vice president of strategic partnerships across all lines of business.
Which is for me, I'm like running the role you run, customer facing, back office. I know you're involved in the tech. You ping me often and ask questions about technology, so I see your hands are everywhere, which is awesome. Just a quick reminder too, you are, I don't know if the only women-owned outsourced sales agency in our directory. I think we want to have more, but definitely you guys are a women-owned and operated company, correct?
Absolutely. Yep. Proud to be that.
I think is great because I think we see a boom of women leadership in software and sales, right? A lot of good training companies. I work with Factor 8, which is a training company that has a thing called Girls Club with Lauren Bailey. I'm not sure if you know her. She was a partner of Customer House back in the day. Yeah, Awesome. She's been in Columbia. You should actually ping her and ask her. She's been here in Columbia with us.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, a couple of years back. But I love hearing that. I think for the format of this show, what I would want people who are listening to this podcast really to kind of get through the weeds, right? I think buyers and sellers, especially buyers, your software companies looking for revenue and B2B appointments, sellers, all these agencies tend to come in at it in a different angle, right? And I think you've seen firsthand. I'd love to just dive into we don't have to put a number on it. Call it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What are in the order the top, I would say, most common mistakes, and by mistakes I mean actions that hurt people's results, that hurts what the buyers want, right? Not a mistake as in they hurt your sales process, mistakes that hurt them from getting what they want. What are these common mistakes that you've seen? And let's just chat about it, because I think that's the big opportunity right now, is helping buyers and sellers do business with each other.
And I've been following along because you've been doing a great job sharing, what we leaders see as some of those mistakes of buyers. So mine are a little different, and which I think is refreshing, right? So one of the, and I'm not putting these in priority order, but just as they are, one critical piece is to understand it's a partnership, that it is not, I'm putting all of this expectation on a partner, and I won't be involved with them, because nothing is set it and forget it. You do, which also leads to another, the onboarding for a custom professional program does involve both parties. We need to understand where the company's been from, where they are now, and where they're going, why we're talking to their targets, what is happening, in the field. And when we have it, is critical for VSA clients to understand that partnership. Now you got a whole job. You're outsourcing this for a reason. You don't have time or effort or, whatnot, or the people internally. So you're not looking as a buyer to be so invested, but the partnership is what makes these programs work or fail. So when we are on the phone, the way that we can talk to your targets is not how our clients can talk to the targets in that volume. And so what we hear is so important to readdress rebuttals, but get better client success stories, how to improve the message, and how to refine exactly who we're talking to.
Well, let me pause that, because there's a lot to unpack there. In fact, even that, and like it gives me it gives me a little smile the same way I asked you about your roadmap and when you talked about the 10 years how you grew. I could see the pride because I took a pivot with my organization. We were like a VSA or service company to become a marketplace, and almost what you just said is why I took this chance, right? And I'm not trying to do focus on CloudTask here, but there's a book, right, called Same Side Selling. I'm going to pull up who it's by because I should remember that. Same Side Selling. Same Side Selling is written by, let's see, what is his name? I always do this. I forget the name of the author, and I still don't have it. Jack Quarles. I'm not sure if I got that wrong. But anyways, Same Side Selling is kind of almost what you spoke about, right? Where it's like, hey, we're on the same team. We're not adversarial to each other, right? And it's so true, right? That's pretty much, I would say, in my opinion, there's so many reasons why people failed outsourcing, but the adversarial approach is definitely one of the top reasons. And it makes a lot of sense because if you're going to outsource sales, it's most likely because you don't have those skills in-house, you don't have product market fit, you need help, right? So it's this concept of like, hey, if I hire a W-2 in-house, I keep them next to me, I treat them like family, they're in dinner, I'm talking to them every day, I'm messaging them, I'm supporting their growth. But when I hire an agency to do the same thing, I demand expectations, I negotiate lower pricing, right? I spend all my time on terms and conditions. I never even talk about, what you said. Like I've had conversations with people where they spend literally hours talking about, is it a 45-day cancellation versus 30 days? They're already spending their time on this is not going to work. And I get frustrated because I'm like, I will talk to you for an hour about your campaign, right? Like, let's talk about your campaign, your buyer personas. Some people don't even send me, they never even say, hey, here's a LinkedIn profile of my customer. This is what I want. I want more of these, right? How often do you do that? So, back to what you're saying, it's the adversarial approach that hurts buyers that you've seen the most, right? Where it's like, hey, you should be closer to us in the first 90 days. You should be talking to us more often. This concept that you're going to talk to us less, give us less, treat us less, and expect more, it's only going to hurt you, the buyer. And it's going to hurt us, the seller, right? I see that all day long. That's kind of why I made this pivot to a marketplace. It's kind of like to help fix that as much as we can. So that makes so much sense. A lot of it to me too, just to chime in as well, because it's a bigger picture. What people don't realize is that same concept is actual human evolution. It's how we started in civilizations. We fight each other because of different tribes, right? We've enslaved each other because of different races, right? We've done all these things to each other, which are so clear in history. And then we buy the same way. And it's not, we might not be going to war, but it kind of is, right? What's the difference? It's the same type of war where like, I don't trust you, I'm going to pay you. And that hurts the buyer. So yeah, that makes sense to me. We could talk about that forever. What else do you see, or any more comments on that topic? Because I think that is a big thing, And
I think when you're respecting each other for people hire fractional CFOs. It's not that they like trust them less. So when you're hiring, let's say, fractional partners like VSA or other lead gen, you need to respect them and be open with them like you would, say, your fractional CFO. So understanding truly what we need to do to get to the ROI. And if we're cold calling, please do not use your warm lead ROI, warm lead sales process. So being open, it's, I feel sometimes in the past years, clients have been a little bit guarded with what their sales process really is. We're like, it doesn't mean we're going to like turn off the tap when we're setting meetings for you. Like,
same
this
concept.
is going well, keep it going. Yep. Yeah.
There's so much topics you could talk about it. You brought up ROI. I'm going to ask you, how many times have you seen a company come to VSA and know their ROI and know their math?
Minimal.
What percentage of the time? Be honest.
Maybe 10%.
You're being very nice.
I am being nice.
You're being very nice. I've seen it like 1%, and I'm being nice, right? So right off the bat, right? Like if you don't know the ROI of your math, if you don't know the financial, how can you actually hire a sales company or salesperson and have a plan for them? It's actually fundamentally flawed, right? It's like building a building without blueprints, basically. And they're all doing it, right? So basically, that's almost point number 2. You didn't even say it, right?
Yep.
because it was rolled up into the adversarial comment because it's true. Because when they don't know their ROI and they don't know their plan, they're automatically adversarial because you don't know anything else. It's not like, hey guys, this is our plan together. This is what we're looking at. This is how we're going to achieve it. It's like, I don't even know my plan. I just know that I want SDRs because I heard that buzzword. I know they're hard to hire, so I'm going to outsource them, right? So do you think that the adversarial approach comes from lack of understanding of sales development and the ROI, or is it something else? Like, what's the main thing feeding that?
Shockingly think it's a not understanding of their math. Like, it's forever ago when I was new to the company, I would get off calls with clients and be like, how could they not understand? This is what your goal is for the year. And how do you back into that goal? You've got this goal. It's X number of, signed contracts. How many proposals do you need to get out to sign contracts? How many follow up? What is your process in your pipeline? And we deal with global companies that can't answer to that.
Oh my God.
Very long ago, I was like, what?
I don't want you to say this stuff that I'm thinking, but yes, I've spoken to publicly traded companies with billion-dollar valuations that don't know their math, right? Or publicly traded companies, or companies that are Series A that raised $10 million, telling investors, we are going to spend $10 million and we're going to make this back in 15 years. And then they want an ROI in 6 months on a 9-month sales cycle. So their math doesn't even match how they raise investors. Yeah. So just a lack of understanding. Do you think that has a lot to do with the job market and how fast, people were able just to be like, I'm a software sales expert, right? It's so easy to say you're a software sales expert these days. It's such demand. Do you think that it's a lack of, is it a generational thing? Is it a lack of supply thing? Is it the fact that all the guys and girls who know what they're doing open their own company? Like, why is there this void of math? Does it come with the fact that we don't teach?
I feel like we finally have put like math in sales. Like, I feel like this is a new thing. I know that's been like a catchy phrase for a little bit, but in my 11 years, it was happening long ago where people didn't know their math and they didn't. And I truly don't know. I don't know if it's because companies didn't want to hold their teams accountable for all those KPIs. I mean, it's very clear. It's very clear of when something is wrong, when you can bring it all the way back to how many first conversations do I need in a week?
Yeah. It's a math problem.
So
I'm not a math guy. Yeah. I'm an SDR. I'm at heart. I'm a follow-up guy. I'm persistent, but I depend on math because it's what I would never get in this building if it wasn't built with calculus and the map. Someone was like, I just drew some cement together, some metal rods. Like, did you get in the building? No. Yeah. So why are you getting into that sales process? Right? It's the same thing. The difference is that if you go into a building and collapses, you're dead. If you work for a broken sales process, you probably got another job offer if that's a better job offer than the last job offer with 3% unemployment. So if people are getting away with murder, if you ask me, from an employment standpoint, and that's forcing almost these bad behaviors. Just to talk about that topic, I think it's interesting because I think in America in general that there's a big concept of that. There's a lack of basic financial education in college and high school, right? They're not teaching you about loans and bills, right? If you look at, I forgot the podcast I was listening to, but like with the amount of money that a person gets loaned for student education, they could buy like multi-family home units and be netting $10K a month instead of paying, hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes. And they're not, so it's like, basically, if you're teaching nobody about finance, and then you're going to college and you're getting huge debts, and you're not taught about the math of your debt, and you're not taught about how many years it takes to pay back that loan. Well, great. Now you're in the workforce and you have no idea about the math of your sales funnel, right? It's kind of stemming from that. So it's almost. And then
unless you get to be a Plunkett child, then the Plunkett children know what that math is before they go to college. I have 4.
Or the 300 SDRs you got.
There you go. Well, those 2, but my own children, it was, when you don't need to spend $75,000 a year if you're getting a teaching degree. It was so my kids are now 26, 25, 23, and I have a high school senior who I was very wise with exactly what they were going to be doing with my money and their potential money for undergrad. I mean, that's just how it is. But
so they were educated or they were not educated?
They were educated.
Yeah. I'm like, look,
because I'm a math gal, so I do.
Yeah. Well, because you're a math gal and you passed it down, right? But obviously, our schools are failing all of the other mothers and fathers who are not math, and they're not getting educated. And it's true. And you know what? They have an advantage. now. That advantage will stick with them. I'm like, it's people who are taught finance at an early age are winning. They're winning. And no one's measuring that. And I heard a quote, I don't want to bring up the names. I know everybody hates Trump, our ex-president, but there was a quote from his ex-wife talking about how Ivanka was like working. She was flying only economy when they were flying first class, and she would have like a summer job and a weekend job. And like they were taught at a very young age, like to work hard for things. Right. And people think, hey, they're just, well, and that's a situation where a wealthy family also teaches kids the value of money, and they turn out to be leaders, right? At the end of the day, that are not spoiled. But so it's a lot of it's education, which is interesting. So much has gone so far that I don't think we'll go back and being able to educate people in finance. But what can you do to help people now? Is it
that's and I because I do support our own VSA sales team also. I have a sales role in the company, but for the rest of my vice president of sales and marketing and our team, it is our role to bring those conversations up in the sales process. And if people are looking for a partner and that those potential partners are not asking those questions in the sales process, because we can't rely on our potential clients to open those conversations. It's upon us to be the experts and start those conversations. And I have started and stopped the sales process because you're like, the ROI is actually not making sense here. And if they want to do, say, a proof of concept and they need closed business, and yet, like you said earlier, I need closed business in 3 months. And you're like, well, we were just talking about your sales process is more like a year. How, and this is my other key factor with mistakes that are made. The people that we speak to during that sales process, it's imperative for them to share and to know what their bosses are expecting from these programs. Because too many times we get into it, we think things are going great, and all of a sudden a higher leader comes in and they're like, oh, we actually needed much more than this. So you're like, whoop, we've been working together for 10 weeks. What?
All the time.
So
do you ever feel that by the time a company is working with an outsourced provider, it's typically a situation where a leader is not really competent in their job and they're trying to outsource it, and then they're a bottleneck and they're protecting their salary? Do you ever feel like that? Like they're just there to protect their salary because it's easy to say, hey, I trusted these 3 companies. They promised me something and they fucked us over, excuse my language. Let's go hire another one. That's easier to say, hey, I didn't give them any planning. I didn't know my ROI. I have no idea what I'm doing, right? Do you ever feel that there's a position that's getting protected in these companies where these leaders claim to be sales leaders and they just, don't have the skills that they need for that role?
Or they're protecting their reps. So we just had this come up in a conversation. You have 52 leads and the rep could account, and we ask every week, how are the meetings going? Did you, are we supporting you with reminders, reschedules? What is happening? Because we really want to know, like we put value obviously every meeting that's our job. So we want to make sure, because we do look at the data. And if they say like, yeah, super, these, they showed up at that title actually is too low. Like we need to know sooner than later. But having a rep turn around after 52 meetings and say, all right, well, 3 are in my pipeline and 9 are rescheduled. And you're like, well, where's the rest of them? We've been asking each week. And it is a challenge because a lot of companies don't want to address internal reps that aren't performing.
Well, it's another big thing. It's you versus them, right? It's this concept of we're going to protect. And it's what's strange about it is that the facts are out, right? Nobody's staying at companies and retiring anymore. The Bridge report is out and it's saying the average SDR rate's 1.2 years, but they're not listening to the data. They're basically like, and it's kind of interesting because if you haven't noticed, it's called an at-will agreement, right? And an employee will leave when they want to, and they will get fired when they want to. But for some reason, until that happens, they are protected, right?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Do you think it's because of the hiring process and the cost of hiring that it's so much that it's just so hard to admit that maybe the rep is not the right fit, that people are more likely to blame someone else and say, hey, we just made a bad hire?
Yeah, it's easy to kind of blame the support, like, oh, well, maybe those meetings weren't that great, or this. You're like, all right, well, every week we're asking to make sure those meetings are on point. I think it is
why? Because you can't say the meetings are bad if you have a high closing rate, right? So they're just waiting to see their funnel, and then they report based on their performance. Because if they perform well, it's giving me more. If they don't perform well, you do bad leads, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's like waiting to leave a review until you see the review for yourself, basically. Yeah. And once you get a positive review, you can leave a positive review. If you get a negative review, you leave a negative review. That's the you versus them.
Yep. And we learned very long ago, not that it always is a fix, but to bring in those, to make sure that our team has met with the reps so that these reps we're not just some cold calling strangers like, oh, where are these meetings coming from and who are they? Like, we've dealt with that before.
No, I'm like, you're most likely the reason why an AE will beat quota, make money, and get a promotion, right? So So build that relationship, right?
Exactly. So, that's where it continues with that collaboration, that this is a partnership. Where are these meetings going? How are they working? Because we want to meet not our direct contacts, goals, but their bosses. Like this, it's critical to the growth of the business and for all parties to shine on this.
No, I can't agree with you more. So we touch a lot. It's you versus them, right off the bat, right? Not understanding the math of your business, protecting your employees is another problem that you see. Not communicating in real time. Do you see a problem with people not following up with leads enough?
Yes. Yeah, that is tough, and we try to capture that every single week. And
what's the average you see, and what's the average you recommend, and what's the delta?
For those, like even like just as simple as drop meetings, depending upon because we do call across different verticals and mostly C-suites and VPs. I do joke because when people say, "Oh, they're not showing," it's a 30% no-show rate, this and that. I'm like, well, if they were easy to reach, VSA wouldn't even be in business. Your business just would be fantastic and growing. And so we all know they are hard to reach. They are busy people. And the faster we can get them back on the phone and onto your calendar, it is already proven that when you're getting reschedules, that they will move through your pipeline in a positive way. So, understanding that together and that for VSA, we are happy to share all call recordings. Like if you're unsure that was like too quick of a meeting scheduled, let's just, let's share all the recordings. And we do copy that to lead sheets because some reps like that, and we're happy to do so. And then they can kind of hear and how we do focus on a wrap. Like we have a, particularly designed wrap for all of our clients to just reiterate. So you don't hear that like, I don't know, I didn't even know I was having this meeting. Like we never want to hear things like that. This VSA is all about qualified top of funnel meetings. Plus,
so do you ever find a situation where a client wants too much qualification, where they're like, hey, we need, and by the way, what qualification system do you follow? Is it BANT or something else? Let's start there.
Yes. Well, and we do through our custom onboarding, we do address that, qualifications. Is there something else, that you would like us to capture while we have these people on the phone, whether there's a meeting set or not, because you finally got them on the phone. The goal is getting to a meeting or an activation of something. And if they're not, then what do you want to learn about your market? My people are skilled to have a casual professional conversation and nicely extend appropriately conversations to get a little bit more info. When our clients start saying, BANT, if this is what you're looking for, we need to go back to the goals of this program. Because if you're looking at, 5 meetings a week, inbound, right? And now you want BANT, maybe we're going to be talking about one.
So, if you have an inbound lead, you might be like, how qualified are they? If you're calling somebody and then you're like, wait, do you have the budget, do you have authority, do you have timeline, do you need, that is the most, that's this horrible process, right? The best you can do is, authority and need, right? Because budget, they didn't come to your website. They didn't ask for you, right? Timeline, they didn't come to your website. You came to them, right? So it's like, you can know that, okay, I'm talking to the CRO of a company that's 200 employees above, and they meet the authority, right? So it's interesting you bring that up, that also people don't separate, I think, the difference between inbound and outbound, right? And how you can qualify it. Do you ever see situations where leaders don't measure, and I think you brought this up with market validation, right? Like what happens if instead of getting a meeting, customers I went to your website and I don't need AI-driven screws, right? And you tell the customer, hey, the customer said you didn't need AI-driven screws. They don't count the meeting, right? They probably put no value on the information, but you're doing your job because you're reaching the persona with the right message. You're getting feedback, and the feedback can't always be, I want to buy from you, right? So do you see an issue with the way people measure KPIs where this concept of meetings is like broken, and they should be just measuring their top line revenue and their pipeline metrics as one team? Because I feel that this concept of 15 meetings hurts business. I can't tell you how many times people ask me for meetings. I'm like, you're talking to me. What do you want? And they're like, a meeting. I'm like, for what? You're talking to me. What do you want? And then I block them, right? And they could have asked me these questions and I would have told them, but they don't get credit for the meeting, right? Do you feel like that's like the KPIs are off? Like, are we measuring the right things? Can we still be measuring meetings, or should we be measuring something else?
So we can, and we've gone back and forth with VSA with our clients in the past, where it's a meeting scheduled. Is it a future opportunity? Is this where a client needs to follow up because they won't set a meeting until a qualifying, if some sort of deeper qualifying question is answered? We've gone back and forth. We used to capture, future opportunities as opportunities, like as a lead. But then it's kind of a little vague, because you're like, well, they're saying call me in January, my contract is up or whatever, but it's not a meeting scheduled. So trying to be clear during that custom onboarding, we share what the call dispositions are and the definitions. We put them on their weekly reports and come back, because we never want that higher up boss to come say, you're capturing all these as opportunities. I'm only counting meetings. So, we want to make sure that we are aligned. For some clients, it's meeting scheduled. Other clients, it's, are you going to be buying in the next, 3 months or not? So it really depends on
why can SDO companies get away with it's going to take a long time and we don't know how to measure your ROI, but you're getting views and looks and pages, but B2B sales agencies get no value on that same thing?
Yeah.
You find that weird?
It is. Well, it's tricky. We're the outsource partner. We're the call center.
Back to the beginning.
Yes. Right.
Always back to the beginning.
Yeah.
So I've had this happen multiple times. Like, look, I'm a very persistent SDR. So like, I know that like I followed up people. I've cold called people 6 years ago who come to CloudTask today. And that's fine because I'm here, right? And I know that. I've had companies come to me and say, hey, we tried outsourcing SDRs before and it didn't work. And I go, what do you mean it didn't work? And they go, well, we didn't get any deals. And then I go, well, why are you calling me now? And they go, well, because we got a call back from $1 million customer and it came from the SDR 2 years ago. How do you measure that? Like, how do you measure the fact that like we are telling people that buyers are in control? We know that 85% of buyers like don't want to come to a meeting unless they want to buy, right? We know that we can't control their timeline. If an SDR calls somebody and then 5 years later, they're like, man, that guy who called me, this company, I'm going to buy it, $1 million deal. Who gets credit for that? Yeah. Is it the SDR agency that was fired 3 years ago? Right? They're not measuring awareness, but without that, they would never get the $1 million deal. Do you think that companies are, and that's why I think that people should be measuring their top line revenue and their gross profit and treating it all as one revenue organization, because those are your main goals. That's how you know you win together, right? Do you think that leaders are failing that scope, meaning like they just don't know who has become aware of your brand and they have no way, they don't have the time. It's almost the same thing as stockholders, right? Like if you invest in short term, you're like 90% going to lose money. If you invest over 10 years, you're like 95% going to make money, right? Like that's the principle, right? Yeah. It's time in the market, not timing the market, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that companies are losing money by simply, not having a pulse on that?
And I think that, it's the long game. You're, finding somebody that's got a check in hand is like basically non-existent, especially when we're talking about, complex offerings and solutions. We're not calling on widgets. Like that's not what we are doing in this marketplace either. So it is so important. And it is a change, especially if they're new to outsourcing, for us to be setting meetings, qualified meetings onto a rep's calendar, and that the rep has to understand that's not going to be a 1 hour webinar. Like you're not going to do a demo the first time you actually speak to somebody. This is a warm lead that you're supposed to develop a relationship, get to the next call. My job is to get the first call. Your job is to speak for, 15 minutes or less. You need to be scripted for it as that rep. And please don't go into your full-blown selling. It's just not how people are functioning in sales.
No, the offer, right, of why they're meeting with you is very different than why they buy from you, right? And whenever you talk to someone hiring you, they'll get into the whole product. Oh, we do all these things, build a business. You're like, okay, you're listening and you're like, man, that's not what the SDR is going to say. Like, why would I take the meeting, right? And they don't sometimes know themselves, right? and they have a lack of offering. I often get calls from software development companies, right? And software development companies, they're always looking for outsourced providers because they don't know how to sell. I'll say it very clearly. They don't know how to sell, right? And they do the same thing. They go, I have 400 developers in Jakarta at $20 an hour. They do Java. They're great. And you're like, that's really unique and not unique at all. That's what I'm hearing every day. And if any of those software development companies, and I hope one's listening to this podcast because I've been telling people to do this, they don't listen to me. If they offer a product requirement document, which is what you need for any project, and they say, hey guys, companies that have project requirement documents made before a project have an 85% chance of success. Can I set up 20 minutes to create one for you as a free offering? They're normally worth $2,000. And if you choose to run your project with us, that'd be great. And if they sell the product requirement document, they'll get so many meetings because they're giving value.
Yeah.
Who wants to meet with somebody? Hey, Michelle, how are you? My name is Amir Reiter. I'm with a software development company. We have 300 software developers. Can I get a minute of your time to sell you a $250,000 project?
Yeah.
Like, there's no value in that ask. If I say, hey, product requirement documents usually cost $10,000, which they do. And because your time is valuable, I'm going to build one for you during the meeting. If they just made that one change, they would all be doing very well. And no one's going to do it. You know why? Because they're lazy. And it's much easier to hire an outsourced sales company and have them fired than to do work. That's the sad part about it. So we've covered a lot of stuff from it. It all comes down to you versus them, right? I think a lot of these things that you're talking about is the you versus them mentality. It's that, and I think COVID's helped this in the sense that COVID allowed us all to be remote, and we learned that just because Michelle might be working from a home or Amir's in an office has nothing to do with our performance, right? We're there now. We're now at a point too where it's like if you're Colombian, Indian, or Pakistani, and you live in San Francisco, you're no different than if you live there, right? Like we're getting there now too. Do you think we're going to actually get to the point where people are just transacting off of, data and not emotions, or you think we have a long way to go? Like how long are we going to be in this you versus them, or is it just not going to go away and we need to figure it out and fend for ourselves?
Well, I think, obviously I exceptionally believe in the data, but the person that's delivering the data, having that human connection is also critical, because it's that, just like on a cold call, it's, the first 7 seconds to develop trust. It's all in the sales process. It is all in our partnerships that you continue to have those personalities that work together with each other. You have to be valid in what you're saying.
Makes sense.
And to be honest with it, where you're saying, to be able to say in the sales process, I think this is actually not going to work. This is, the math does not make sense for you. This is where we're at. This is where, it may be. And then from there.
The problem with honesty is that you're honest. They didn't want to hear you. Then they go into another company and they lie to. So how, you know what I mean? That's right. So we have to change the way people buy. I'm thank you, Jack Quarles, for writing The Same Side Selling. I think everybody should read it. I was going to add one more thing that people do, but I forgot. And I'm just going to dive into who your best customers are. Like when you have somebody that's a meeting on your calendar that you're not like, I can close this deal. You're like, I can get this guy the meetings he needs, right? Like, what does he look like? What type of industry? Is it service or software? I want to hammer into that. I want people to listen to this and know exactly who this VSA services. Who's your top 20%, right?
So we have, we've built our ideal client profile forever ago, tried to live by it, and through some key partnerships, I've kind of blown it up a bit, because it comes down to how are they going to function with you or not. If you're going to do, lead gen for Fortune 200 and they're not going to be on the phone with us each week and they're not going to be responsive to changes in messaging, if we're not going to know what's going on with meetings, it doesn't matter that their piece of business is over 25,000 and they've got a team of reps, all these ideas that we would take on a customer because we expected growth. Now what we're doing, well-funded startups where we are setting meetings for the owner. And he is engaged and activated with us, and we are working to grow his business. So it is it's back to that partnership, and it is tricky. You go in the sales process, and you're like, this offering is exceptional. This makes so much sense, and you need to be very aware in the first couple of weeks, really the first 2 weeks. Is there an appetite for this or not? And what can we do for them to understand?
Because you answered it not about the persona, not about the characteristics of them from a financial standpoint. You answered them that they are the opposite of what your number one reason why your customers fail.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the opposite.
Yep.
It's the people who are not adversarial. It's the people who treat you like a team member. It's the people who communicate with you. And that's a great answer. I haven't heard that answer yet, Michele. So thank you for that. Because basically what you're saying is that we can make it work with people who have product market fit or products that have these attitudes.
Yep.
Right? Yep. Which is great. Do you ever see yourself getting to the point where you niche down and say, we only work with software companies or service companies?
Well, I had, when I was,
pick one.
I pick software. Business services are tough. I mean, we spend our downtime and our, COVID money on really working, getting business services messaging right and getting, the plan of how to make them stand out above the crowd. If my sales team sold a digital agency years ago, I would have been like tirading a bit because they're so hard. But now, making sure that messaging, targeting, lists, and that active involvement, it has changed things.
I got what you're saying. You're saying that software companies have a clearer, unique selling proposition and meeting offering, and service companies are a little bit harder. And you're right. You're right. You're right about it. And you're right about it because of human behavior. Mm-hmm. It's not because they don't. It's because they don't want to take the time. It's because they are so obsessed with the fact that they have 300 developers that they don't ever think about how would I receive a meeting, right? Because they can change that. Yeah. But you could write as many messages as you want. If the landing page or homepage doesn't match that, people won't convert.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So unless someone got an email and said my software development company just went out of business and they're an emergency, they might respond. But other than that, it's the website. So that's awesome. So I love how you tied your best client to the number one reasons why people make mistakes, which is awesome. And I think we could educate the whole world about this topic for everyone's industry, right? Mm-hmm. I think people listening to this, I think they face the same adversarial problems in their own business and services, right? Yep. So they're facing the same thing when they're hiring companies like VSA to make meetings, right? And they got to get their head that we're all on one team. We're all trying to solve these problems together. Yep. We can all educate ourselves, right? Versus protecting our jobs and salaries. If people want to find you, and if people want to hire VSA or contact you, how do they find you? What's the easiest channel? And how can they reach out, Michele?
LinkedIn is super simple. So it's Michele Plunkett.
I know she's saying. She's like, I figured out LinkedIn. Message me on LinkedIn.
That's right.
I've been pushing Michele on Omnichannel, and she's actually very good on all channels. She's very modest when it comes to that, but she's very responsive and all. But LinkedIn, guys. So LinkedIn, they can find you.
LinkedIn's easy. Well, I love to tell my clients, especially in the process, my cell phone is on my signature for a reason. Feel free to text or call me.
Do you ever notice that people say, I don't want to give you my cell phone, even though an email or a message goes to their cell phone anyways, and it's all the same thing? And you're like, why?
I think, it's the same thing. Mobile has, all of that protecting of mobile is almost semi over now. I mean, 2 years ago, we were like, absolutely not. We will not be calling people's mobiles. No, if we got a gatekeeper who said, oh, call Amir's mobile, you're like, you must document that like completely in the notes. We're not calling people's mobile. And now it's a very different world. And everybody, it is.
It all goes to your mobile.
Your phone.
Your office phone forward to your mobile. Your Instagram message goes to your mobile. And then people are like, email me or text this, and then they don't give your mobile number. I'm like, you can like hit one button that says block contact, right? Like if somebody is texting you or harassing you, it takes 2 seconds, right?
Yeah.
So, one last thing. I got to ask this. Ghosting. How do you feel about people who don't have I don't know what the word is, respect, to just say, hey, Michele, we chose another company, but I appreciate your time. Do you experience ghosters? Because they're getting worse.
It's yes. Well, at the beginning of being more in the sales process, I'm like, oh my God, they did not even show up. Like I was not, and my sales peers are like, what do you mean? Like they always show up. I'm like, oh yeah, I have a great show rate. I don't know. You just ask for honesty, like just state, this is whatever. You never know because
as if a sales company can't take rejection, right? Yeah. It's a weird thing as if someone says, hey, I chose another agency because so-and-so, but I appreciate your time. And you go, no, you're not allowed to do that agency. I'm going to come unsign that agency. I'm going to stop this. It's so strange, right? Like I run a marketplace, right? So sometimes if we lose an opportunity to someone who's not in our marketplace, I want to know what that agency is to reach out to them to get them on our marketplace. So because I think in my head, I'm like, well, maybe they were a better fit. And if they're a better fit, I want to help the next person. And the company goes, I've had people say, I'm under NDA. I can't tell you who we're working with. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So yeah, we got weird stuff going on. I think we need to help them.
Well, I just think, overall, obviously my role is to grow VSA, right? Continue to grow VSA. But I feel, especially in our marketplace where we are competitors, but we're also support for each other. So with when I've got somebody in the process and they're deciding, I may go with another, this or that, I'm like, you're wise. You should shop around. You should talk to others because other questions will come up.
Do multiple agencies at the same time, actually. That's what you should do.
You should do that. You will, fine. If you love us, one and done, and that's that. But be a smart shopper.
Protect your bottom line. You've seen us recommend VSA and other agencies at the same time and say the truth. Hey, when push comes to shove, we're here to support everybody, but we also want to support your pipeline.
Yeah. And if I do lose a deal, I very openly say it is fantastic that you landed with something that you're feeling good about. I'm always open to talking, not to sell to you, but hey, this came up. What are you thinking? I enjoy being a peer to others. So, and it's like networking. It could be a lost sale, but
I think that's what we're getting at, right?
Yeah.
One to many. Even this podcast we're on, we want to educate many, right? We want people to just come ready for us to get qualified meetings so they can get revenue. We don't want to be battling you versus them. We want to be talking about the offer, the target list, the campaign, right? We want to get the results, right? So we're both competitive. Michele, I'm going to let you go because I've been keeping you long, but I'm going to have you back on the show again because we are going to continue to just dive into these topics and educate people. So everybody, Michele Plunkett, VSA, thank you for joining the show. You can find her on LinkedIn and you can find her website at VSAProspecting.com. I'm not sure.
Yes.
I forgot.
Yeah.
VSAProspecting.com. And you're awesome. And thank you. And have an awesome day. And
this was
keep
great.
helping.
Always love talking. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Take care.